Now, on to our next speaker. Sandy Montano has some key titles to her name. She is the first ever ASEAN Woman Leader awardee during the ASEAN Business Awards, or ABA 2014, held in Myanmar. She received this award because of her outstanding presence in the community as the woman behind Community Health Emergency Education and Rescue Services, or CHEERS. The institution's advocacy is to provide rescue services during natural disasters and calamities. The following year, she was recognized by ASEAN Women Entrepreneur Network, or AWEN, in Hanoi, Vietnam as the Outstanding ASEAN Women Entrepreneur of the Year. And in case you didn't know, Sandy is a nurse by profession and was recognized as Warang Nars ng Bayan by the Philippine Nurses Association. Currently the chairperson of the Philippine Commission on Women, or PCW, to give insights on how women are powerful beyond measure and beautiful beyond pressure. Streaming live from Manila, Philippines, ladies and gentlemen, Chairperson Sandy Montano.
Women who rule. This event was made possible because of a good person and an empowered woman, Miss Apple. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to thank GWWR for making this possible, for inviting me to talk about violence against women and the Safe Spaces Act and how we can empower more women and girls with today's society. Now let me walk you through the two landmark laws for the protection of the women, which I know is very relevant for you to know as we celebrate the National Women's Month. Okay, so sa lahat po, sa mga nakikinig ngayon at nanonood, Happy Women's Month po sa inyong lahat. Okay, so let me start with the Republic Act 11313, or the Safe Spaces Act, also known as the Bawal Bastos Law, and Republic Act 9262, or the Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children Act. Let us first understand why these laws were enacted and why our women and children are at the brunt of discrimination that necessitated the passage of special laws to protect them. Here are some of the examples of actual advertisements from time when male superiority was considered as the social standard. Imagine if the same situation still exists today, that women are not allowed to cast vote, go to college, occupy leadership positions both in government and the private sector, or enjoy equal salary and opportunity as men. The root cause of the vow, okay, these are harmful gender norms, are deeply embedded in our cultures and religions that sometimes we do not recognize it instantly. The inadequate power relations between men and women are fueled by sexism, patriarchal customs, and the less general perspective that women are vulnerable and less competent. As the future leaders and change agents of this country, your participation in the fight against discrimination and violence against women is indeed crucial. I would like to point out that violence against women, or VOW, remains to be one of the country's pervasive social problems. Pervasive because it has been existing at all levels, in walks of life, even in the vulnerable and marginalized sectors like IP women, persons with disabilities, and women in general. Data show that even with the passage of several laws that we have right now, women still experience from different forms of abuses, including sexual online exploitation. In the interest of time, we will be focusing the discussion on the Safe Spaces Act and the Anti-VAUSI Act. These two landmark laws that aims to protect women and girls from sexual harassment and the intimate partner violence. Before the passage of the Safe Spaces Act, the Public Act 7877, or the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, was signed into law in 1995. Back then, it can only be considered as a sexual harassment if the offense is committed by a perpetrator who has moral ascendancy over the victim. For example, the abuser is your teacher, your boss, your coach or trainer, or any other person who has moral ascendancy, authority, or influence over you. On one hand, if you were abused by your classmate, friend, or fellow employee, or if a teacher was harassed by a student, it would not be considered sexual harassment. It would only be treated as acts of lasciviousness or unjust vexation, which also has lower penalties under the revised penal code. The Public Act 11313 or the Safe Spaces Act recognizes that safety should not have a limitation and should cover spaces where people are allowed to participate, develop, whether physically or virtually. It expanded, it expanded the previous law to include public and online spaces aside from the workplace, schools, and training institutions. It also removed the requirement that the abuser must be someone who has authority, moral ascendancy, or influence over the victims. Victims can now file a case for gender based sexual harassment if it is committed by peers, friends, fellow teachers, or employees, as long as the offense falls within the definition of sexual harassment under the Safe Spaces Act. So, as I have mentioned earlier, sexual harassment is now punishable when committed between peers, colleagues, associates, schoolmates, professors, non-teaching personnel, regardless of their positions or authority. The organizations or officers must also designate an officer in charge to receive the gender-based sexual harassment complaints and forward them to the Committee on Decorum and Investigation, or this is what we call the CODI. We also hope that more victims will be encouraged to report and to the authorities so that they can be given necessary protection and assistance to prevent further abuse. Let me share some of the ways to report by seeking help during the pandemic. First, the victim can report to the barangay baudes for immediate assistance. Baudes are usually located inside the barangay hall and are managed by female desk officers. It is good to have your barangay contact number saved on your cell phones in case of emergency. Okay, next, victims can also report abuse to the Women Children Protection Center or WCPC, which is under the Philippine National Police. The WCPC handles cases of violence against women and their children and oversees the conduct of investigation, arrest, and other operations against perpetrators. You can find the WCPC on Facebook or the Aling Police Hotline to the numbers you can see on the website and other social media. Another way to report online is through the e-report sa Gender Umbud website. Developed by Commission on Human Rights, you can file a complaint online and officers will contact you to get more information, provide help, and refer to your agencies or other necessary services. We also have the DSWD, which piloted a program called Y Support, where the victim can call, text, email, or use their app to get counseling and other mental health and support services for free. Okay, if the victim needs medical assistance, particularly those who are physically or sexually abused, they can avail of the services being provided by the Women and Children Protection Units or WCPU. Okay, what else? I would like to share to you now that we have just signed an MOU wherein the violence against women can now be included in the 911 emergency hotline. Before, when we talk about emergency, there are 5 cases being adopted or being rescued by the 911 emergency hotline. the terrorism, bombing, fire, earthquake, calamity, and the medical emergency. Now, the six um, cases or emergency or urgent case is the gender-based violence and the violence against women and children. So this makes us more evident that we can work together. We can make sure that there is a project with the government that you can count on. Also, we would like to tell everyone that we will be launching today the Move. Okay, Men Oppose Violence Everywhere. This is an organization under the IAC-VAUSI and the Philippine Commission on Women, wherein we would like to ask all our male counterparts to join us in this Move chapter. If you belong to an LGU in your community, you can check with them and be a member. The membership is free. As a matter of fact, if you're going to join for some meetings, for some activity and gift giving, this can be charged. All the membership or the cases that you're going to need to pay can be charged to the Gender and Development Fund or the 5% fund allocated with the government agency. Okay? So when we talk about, at this point, I would like to call on you, all of you, to be an agent and ally in reducing violence against women. Together, let us create a community that is free from violence. We will be observing this year, November and December, the annual 18-day campaign to end violence against women. And this is a form, okay, these are what we call this Safe Spaces Act and other forms of gender-based violence. Okay, again, I would like to end my presentation by saying that together we can do a lot. And if we will able to help children and women to empower themselves, so chances are we will have their full potential. We all have a role to play. Women, stand up for your rights, break barriers, be pioneers of change, and empower other partners and make sure that discrimination is eradicated. Our men, okay, sa ating mga puwan na nakikinig at nanood po ngayon, you can help by challenging stereotypes and the traditional macho culture and enjoying more wants to practice positive instead of toxic masculinity. To the LGBTQIA community, you are propellers and key movers of this advocacy towards gender equality. To government agencies and private institutions like the GWWR, we count on you for concrete programs and services that will help turn the wheel of the gender equality and women empowerment. The Philippine Commission on Women thanks all our partners in this advocacy, and we encourage everyone to continue building on the gains achieved and move further towards gender equality. Lastly, to all Juanas out there, this celebration is a reminder that you are strong, magnificent, beautiful in all ways, exemplary, diligent, brilliant, compassionate and passionate, innovative, resilient and powerful, for being pillars, trailblazers, and change makers in their family, community, and our country. We honor and celebrate you. If I may share to you, women are powerful beyond measure and beautiful beyond pressure. This is Sandy Sanchez Montano, your chairperson from the Philippine Commission on Women, saying congratulations at Happy Women's Month po sa ating lahat.